You'll see both Verona and Sargon on your agenda for this afternoon. We're going to go a little different order, mix it up just a little bit, but it'll be the same material, and they've tweaked their presentations to make them even more better, and we're thankful for that. Verona, while Verona comes up, we got Verona from North Texas, and he's been a tremendous add to what we do in the Houston district. We are so thankful for his leadership and his work on the delivery projects that we have. Obviously, we've had several design build jobs and one concession project, and what he's brought to the district has been just almost indispensable, and now we can imagine our lives without him. And we're so thankful to be able to have him be part of our program today as well. So, without further ado, thanks one more time to ACEC. Verona, it is all yours.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, Quincy doesn't like when you describe 45 going up to Dallas. He'll say, why do you want to do that? So, 45 does go up to Dallas. So this afternoon, I'm going to kick it off by describing for you, kind of introducing the two delivery models, basic delivery models TxDOT uses to deliver construction projects. This morning, a lot of time Gail spent on TxDOT consulting for professional services. That is used, those design plans are used for design bid build. We take those plans and we advertise it for a low bid, traditional delivery. The other method is design build, and I'll step through a series of slides comparing the two so you can see how they work. So the design bid build or design build, that's the question, right? It comes down to, the answer depends on how complex the project is and who is in the best position to manage certain risks. Is it the owner, TxDOT, the public agency? Metro has used design build. Other public agency across the country has used design build. Or is it the private sector, the contractor and the consulting community to manage that risk? So I'll describe for you or compare the two methods using three basic buckets: how we contract, the delivery process for both, and then the risk allocation. Let's focus on contracting. In design bid build, TxDOT, either with our own engineers or consulted engineers that Gail described earlier today, will develop a set of plans, complete set of plans for bidding. We will take those sets, advertise it for a monthly letting for a low bidder. And that usually happens, we open the envelopes in the early part of the month, and everything checks out, bonding, insurance on that contractor. We would do final award at the end of the month on a project. Typical example of that is the 290 corridor. That was design bid build, a combination of 12 to 13 projects, separate projects. Those were designed either by consultants that TxDOT contracted with directly or in-house forces. Then we advertised those projects to bring on board contractors. On the contracting for design build, we will follow a two-step procurement process to hire a design builder to do the design and the construction. Typically, that contractor will have a direct contract with a prime design consultant. Example of that is the current project on 249. We heard from AJ this morning, he's with Parsons Transportation Group. The contractor that won that job was Williams Brothers. Their designer is Parsons, so they've hired Parsons to deliver that signed and sealed set of plans. Delivery model. Gail went into great detail this morning on how we hired consultants to design our plans. We will then take those plans, as I said earlier, and advertise them. For design build, we will issue first a request for qualifications, and that speaks to the contractor and their subconsultants and subcontractors. Have they done a project as complex as what we're looking to procure? Are their people qualified? Do they have the experience? Do they understand the project we're looking to procure? And what's their safety record? Those are the three buckets in the quals stage. let's say we get 8 teams submit qualifications. We will review, evaluate, and then we will shortlist. Maybe we narrow it down to 4 teams. That takes us now to the request for proposal phase. This is where we advertise the specs we want for that project. Geometry, schedule, everything in the engineering type, the scope of the project. Then they submit their proposals. This is their price and their technical approach to the project. And later on in the afternoon, I will run you through a procurement process for the upcoming 45 job downtown that will touch on these components again. We will then select what's called a best value proposer. It's different than low bid because there is roughly 70–80% of the score is price. It's heavy on price. But the remaining 30%, 20% is on their technical approach, their qualifications. So it's a little more subjective. And we've had probably a dozen projects in Texas since we started using design build. And one project has resulted with a technical score, not the price, determining the winner. And that's the current project in Corpus Christi, the Harbor Bridge project. So let's look at risk. So design bid build, the owner, TxDOT in this case, has most of the risk. We have to deliver a complete set of plans, either with our own engineers or our consulted engineers. There is no connection, contractual connection between the designer and the contractor. And for design build, we shift many risks from TxDOT over to the design build contractor. And we will do that for several reasons. Because of the complexity of the project. Here in this model, design build, the contractor is responsible for delivering a complete set of plans. They will coordinate and have that direct contractual relationship with their designer, like Williams Brothers does with Parsons on 249. In design build, the contractor takes more of the schedule risk compared to our traditional delivery of work. On 45, I'll discuss later on, is a major example of why we want to use design build, because it's a very complex project with traffic control and the type of work we're doing. So this slide compares design bid build, traditional delivery with alternative delivery design build against the different risk types. You can also think them as different phases of the project. So in both models, TxDOT will always have the risk of securing environmental approvals. Both models, TxDOT has to provide that to our contractor and to the designer, if it's traditional delivery. Financing, TxDOT has the dollars, has to come up with the dollars to fund the project. One caveat to this is the concession model, which is not on the screen. The 288 is a perfect example of that. It's an $815 million job. TxDOT's only putting in roughly $17 million. The concessionaire or private developer is bringing the rest of the dollars to the table. They have a long-term agreement with TxDOT to recoup those dollars as they operate and maintain the facility, including toll roads. So they'll collect the revenues, and that's the business decision that we followed on 288. On operations and maintenance, traditional, TxDOT has the responsibility, and we share it under design build. Perfect example of that is the current project that's open to the public right now at Grand Parkway, segments F through G from 290 out west to 59 in New Caney. Our contractor, we're now in O&M. It's open to the public. There are 4 big items that the contractor has to take care of in maintenance phase for us. Structures, bridges and retaining walls, drainage, pavement, and embankment. The rest of it, mowing, litter, signage, guardrail, that's TxDOT. So we share that in design build. Environmental compliance, we share that as well. We give them the approval, and they have to abide by those approvals. Right-of-way acquisition, traditional, we have to deliver the right-of-way to our contractor. when we sign that contract, or have a plan on how it's going to be delivered over the period of that construction term. Design build, we can share that. We can do as much as we can beforehand and then hand it off once we get under contract. We've done that on 249 in segment 1 in Montgomery, and we'll do that in segment 2 in Grimes County. Utility delays, traditional, we own that, 100% TxDOT. This is where we start transferring risk to the contractor under design build. Because their design and the sequence of construction, they're taking ownership of that. The design build affords us the opportunity to push utility relocation onto the contractor. They're in the best position to manage that. Design we talked about, traditional, we have to deliver a sealed set of plans, and on design build, the contractor has to deliver that through their designer. Construction, nothing changes here. TxDOT does not perform construction. We've always contracted that out, be it traditional or alternative delivery. And schedule remains with the contractor in both models. This is a typical sequence of project development. In planning, you see there on the right side is your typical scopes of work, and Sargon is going to touch a lot on these elements through the various phases of project development, from planning all the way to construction. This slide is, we struggled on developing it because it's a little counterintuitive, so bear with me as I step you through it. What it's intending to show is that for design bid build and design build, they both have a planning component to it, and TxDOT owns that. Environmental clearance, they need clearance. TxDOT owns that. Right-of-way utilities, this is where we start sharing and shifting between the two. Design build, it's a two-step procurement process, request for qualifications or RFQ, and request for proposals. And you can see there on the right, in the big box right here, this is where you're mixing right-of-way acquisition, utilities, and design, whereas in traditional design bid build, it's more sequential. We have to get all the right-of-way before we let the contract. The design has to be completely done. A perfect example of how in design build things can kind of go parallel is, take a bridge, for example. Your design builder, WB in this case, could choose to issue an early package for foundations for a bridge without the columns, the beams, and the deck being finished. Early work. Earthwork, for example. Start setting grade, bringing in embankment or cutting excavation as they're developing the pavement and the roadway elements. Whereas traditional, that all has to be completed, and TxDOT delivers that to the contractor with a specific sequence of events. They can change that, but TxDOT gets the approval on that. A little more specificity on that two-step process. Qualifications, proposal, and the final step is final contract execution. So first we'll issue a request for qualifications, and we need commission action and approval to do that. We'll issue the document showing the criteria we're looking for and how we're going to score those qualifications. So Raquel was making fun of me of why I threw environmental clearance in there as if it always happens there. And the point of that, why environmental clearance is on the slide where it's at, is typically we do not want to go out for the RFP, request for proposals, until we know we have an environmentally cleared process. Because TxDOT is responsible for providing that clearance, we don't want to hold up the project and waste industry time without knowing we have an approved project. That is our desire. There are sometimes other pressures that cause us to move forward with the RFP before environmental clearance, but as Quincy said earlier, we always strive to improve. So we receive the qualifications, we score them, we evaluate them, and we shortlist. After we have our shortlisted teams, we issue the request for proposals. Now, per state law, after we issue a request for proposal, we have 180 days max, 6 months to receive proposals. You can't just have industry just flapping in the wind past 6 months. So I say 5 to 8 months because we can shorten the time the RFP is out on the street if it's a simpler type design build project, or we can take the full 6 months. And months 7 and 8 is used by TxDOT to evaluate, score, and recommend to the commission for a conditional award. We conditionally award the best valued, the project to the apparent best value proposer, and then we spend the next 3 months getting to final contract execution, typically 3 months. So, as a DBE, what can you expect in the first phase, the quals phase? So, it assumes that you're already certified, so that's a basic assumption. You're networking with major participants. If I could have a show of hands, major designers that are interested in the design build world. So AECOM, is Parsons still here? HDR, those are typically the firms that the design builder, the contractor, will team with to be their lead designer. Stantec is that role on 288. Othon is providing that role on segments H&I and Grand Parkway. And as I mentioned earlier, Parsons is providing that role on 249. So as a DBE in a sub-discipline, you want to be partnering and networking with these firms. You may be asked to prepare materials, sign confidentiality agreements, because now you're in a pursuit on one team against your competitors and against their competitors. And you may or may not need to participate in the RFQ stage. This is the interaction between the owner and these prospective teams. In the RFP stage, so if you're fortunate enough to get shortlisted, and you're on the team that's shortlisted, what can you expect? You need to understand that in the RFP phase, you may not get compensated for your time and your efforts because your team hasn't won the job yet. And that's true not just for DBEs, but any sub-consultants that's part of that team, or maybe even the prime designer, right? So that's kind of a mindset change. Because it is a long time, the procurement period is longer, that's a risk you need to understand, that you may not get compensated until well after if you're fortunate to be the best value team. Definitely confidentiality agreements will be in place. And you may be asked to bring your subject matter experts to the table. There's a series of meetings in that 6-month period with TxDOT and the shortlisted teams to talk about the specifications and the requirements of the RFP. So I'll pause there before handing it over to Sargon. Are there any questions on the two models? All right. So Sargon has been with TxDOT over 29 years. He's got a wide variety of experience, including in construction, design, and his current post is with PEPS, the division within TxDOT that handles procurement of professional services. He's on Gail's team, covering a wide variety of responsibilities, including projecting needs for the district, running procurements, selection for contracts, and managing contracts after they're executed at the master agreement level and work authorizations. With that, I'll hand it over to Sargon.
Thank you, Bruno. discussing the procurement services, how we procure, some of the scope, and some of the requirements for pre-certifications, the changes to pre-certifications, and why pre-certifications are required. Pre-certifications are required according to Texas Administrative Code, Title 43, Rule 9.33. And it's a requirement for individuals who want to be eligible to work for TxDOT, provide professional services. There's something new that's going on with the pre-certification. I believe it went in effect April 5th or 4th. There are some of the categories that are being merged. There's new categories that are being added. They used to be non-listed work categories, which is great news. So there's going to be list disqualifications based on not meeting the requirements of non-listed work categories. Because it's going to be already, everybody's going to be pre-certified in those. So you want to make sure that your insurance requirements are up to date, that consultant errors and omissions, corrections and collections, policy and procedures, review those, and guidance regarding post-employment restrictions like Senate Bill 20, revolving door policy. Prepare your applications. You can go to our website, which I will go in a minute through it, and you may want to go ahead and fill it by hand, have the projects, what you want to write, because you're going to be limited to 300 characters per project. Okay? So then you get a CCIS user contact information sheet, then you submit that along with request for external access to TxDOT information system, forms 1980 and form 1828B. Then, once you have the access to CCIS online, you will complete the web application and CCIS online, and make sure that you maintain your pre-certification status, update them periodically, and make sure that another important thing is annual renewals between January 1st and March 31st of each year. Currently, there are 18 work groups with 111 work categories. And here's a quick overview of what the work groups are like. Group 1, Transportation System Planning, which has 8 work categories. Then Group 2, Environmental, it's got 3 subgroups. Environmental Studies with 4 work categories. U.S. Army Corps of Engineers program, 4 work categories. And then Protected Species Coordination has 10 work categories. Group 3 is Schematic Development, used to have 5. Now everything's been combined in 1 work category. Group 4, Roadway Design, has 4 work categories. Used to have 6 or 7. Group 5, Bridge Design, has only 3 work categories. Group 6, Bridge Inspection, has 8 work categories. There was a lot of non-listed work categories that now they're converted to pre-certifications. Traffic Engineering and Operation Studies has 4 work categories. Traffic Operation Design has 5. License of Facilities 1. Hydraulic Design Analysis has 10. They've added, I believe, 4 or 5 new work categories that used to be non-listed categories. Converted them to pre-certifications. Construction Management, same thing. There's about 6 of them that they added. It used to be 2, now it's 8. Material Testing has 8. They've added about 5 new work categories to it, which we will go in detail. Geotechnical Services has 5. Surveying and Mapping 9. Architecture, Building, and Other Structures has 3 work categories. Facilities Engineering has 7. Utility Engineering has 5. And Miscellaneous is 1. Okay. I believe Raquel said everybody's gonna get a copy of these slides. Raquel? Yes.
Yes,
So,
we're gonna make a, once we have all of the presentations for the day, we'll create a page where all of the presentations can be found, and I'll send out the link to everyone on the side.
currently we're accepting applications for the new pre-certification categories. And this is a sample of what they look like. There's going to be group number, category, the description of the category, and the minimum requirements for each one of them. Then the next link will take you to this our home. Basically, you can go through all the requirements about pre-certification, how to get pre-certified, what you need, projected contracts, advertised contracts, all the information and resources you need. And then the last link will take you directly to the projected contract list. That's updated weekly, every Wednesday. So please note that Texas Board of Professional Engineers rules prohibit selection of firms based on cost, rates, and location. All selections are qualification based, so does the PAC rule. Texas Administrative Code state that. Here's an overview of the pre-certification updates. We used to have 60 work categories with 78 work groups with 78 work categories and 30 standard NLCs. Now we have 18 work groups with 111 work categories and no standard NLCs anymore. Here, here's an overview of, everything that's in white, these boxes, what it means is like, if you were already pre-certified in these, you would grandfather in and you will still remain pre-certified. No changes to that. All of the requirements have changed a little bit, okay? All the blue boxes means that they're new work categories like traffic demand modeling and public involvement. They used to be non-listed work categories, so now you can get pre-certified in them. Then we have the yellow. The yellow ones mean that basically they went away. They either got merged with something or there was no need for them. Then we have the greens that they were all merged. Like for example, like schematic development used to have 6 work categories under it. Now it's only 1. Route studies and schematic design. So if you were already pre-certified 3.21 or 3.11 or 3.31, you're still gonna be pre-certified 3.21, route studies and schematic design. Some of the frequently asked questions about pre-certifications. What happens to an employee if he leaves? Well, leaves the firm and goes from firm A to B. Well, the employee pre-certification will follow the individual, not the firm. Then, if I leave a firm, how do I transfer my records? not allow joint ventures. In other words, TxDOT does not allow an individual to be simultaneously employed by two firms when working under a contract. To transfer records, contact our CCIS online administrator by email or by phone. How many projects can I put in my application? 10 projects per employee may be submitted. Keep in mind that it is only necessary to meet the minimum requirements for the categories. Space in the TxDOT database is limited to 60 characters per line and 5 lines for project work descriptions. If you go over the limits of our database, you will need to resubmit the information. So basically, it would kick it out. Who can I contact for questions, comments, or suggestions for the CCIS online system? Dan. No. Contact CCIS online administrator by email or phone. I'm sure a lot of people have come across this issue with PTC forms, part 2 of 3. Sometimes you will put the employee sequence number and everything is correct, and then the box will go red. So if that happens, first thing to do is please go ahead and check your employees' certification. Make sure that they're pre-certified in what category. And if they are, then contact your procurement engineer listed on the RFQ. And then we'll give you provide further instruction on how to handle it. The contract types and disciplines that are in pink are basically what we've been procuring a lot in the Houston area, like bridge, CEI, CPM contracts, hydraulics, planning, PSNE, schematic environmental, survey, traffic engineering, signal timing, and utility engineering. Now we're going to go through some of the work groups and some of the work categories required for some of these, the following 9 disciplines. The on-off system bridge replacements, the PSNE, schematic environmental, construction engineering inspection, planning, hydraulics and hydrology, traffic engineering studies, utility engineering, and surveying, just to provide you an idea of what kind of pre-certifications you would need. The typical on-off system bridge replacement would have an environmental studies group, which could include things like work categories like traffic noise analysis, air quality analysis. Then it will have U.S. Army Corps of Engineers permits. Could be nationwide, could be 404 permit, protected species coordination, socioeconomic analysis, hazardous material, then schematic development, route studies and schematic design, roadway design, bridge design, could be bridge design, or multi-level interchange design, traffic operation design, signing, pavement marking, channelization, signalization, hydraulic design analysis. Could include hydrologic studies, basic hydraulic design, surveying and mapping, design and construction survey, right-of-way mapping, utility engineering, subsurface utility engineering, SUE. Next is PSNE. PSNE could have the environmental studies, just like the on-off system bridge replacement, Army Corps of Engineers, permits, protected species, schematic development, roadway design, bridge design, traffic engineering and operation studies, traffic operation design, hydraulic design analysis, geotechnical services, soil exploration, geotechnical testing, surveying and mapping, then utility engineering. Schematic environmental, transportation system planning, feasibility studies, and the reason I put the public involvement in red because that usually get non-listed category. Now, you can get pre-certified. So every time you are submitting an SOQ, You don't have to go in there and redo all the paperwork to write up for the public involvement. Environmental studies, traffic noise analysis, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers permits, protected species coordination, schematic development, traffic engineering and operations studies, traffic operations design, hydraulic design analysis, geotechnical services, surveying and mapping. The typical construction engineering inspection RFQ would require the following: the transportation system planning, public involvement, construction management, there's going to be roadway, construction management, bridge construction management, construction scheduling, construction superintendent, environmental inspection. Then you would also have material testing and some geotechnical services, surveying and mapping, utility engineering, subsurface utility engineering, utility adjustment management, verification, and coordination. So that's why I put that again. That everything in red is they used to be knowledge the work categories, not anymore. Planning, transportation system planning, travel demand modeling, public involvement. You could have system planning, sub-area corridor planning, land planning engineering, feasibility studies, traffic engineering studies. Hydraulics and hydrology. Okay, here, since hydraulics and hydrology doesn't have too many work categories, I've actually put that actual exact work categories that usually are advertised. It would have 4.21 roadway design, 10.11 hydrologic studies, 10.21 basic hydraulic design, complex hydraulic design, pump station hydraulics, pump station electrical, pump stations structures, bridge scour evaluation and analysis, design and construction surveys. The same with the traffic engineering studies. It would require the pre-certifications in the following: roadway design, traffic engineering studies, highway railway crossing studies, traffic signal timing, traffic control systems analysis, design and implementation, intelligent transportation system, signing, pavement marking, illumination, signalization, ITS, highway railway crossing, and bicycle and pedestrian facilities. And then utility engineering. The RFQ would have the following pre-certification requirements: design and construction survey, utility adjustment coordination, utility engineering, and utility construction management and verification. Survey would have survey, parcel class, legal description, right-of-way map, design and construction survey, aerial maps, horizontal and vertical control for aerial maps, state land surveying. And both of those, the slideshow, the presentation, and the spreadsheet, they're going to be available. And Raquel will email it to everybody. Any questions? Yes.
There is a particular manual C, access management. Now, where it does go? Is that now a separate category?
The access management?
Yeah. Which ANLC?
Yeah. It used to be an LLC. I haven't looked at it in detail, but I can look into that and get back with you. Okay? Access management. Yes,
Same
sir.
lines. What about other NLCs? Are they bundled into one of the categories or
I'm sorry, what?
regarding the NLCs, there are some other NLCs like traffic projections. Are they bundled into one of the categories, work categories, or?
Traffic modeling, it's already, yes, it's rolled, it's got,
Yeah, there is a.
it got moved to 1.1. It got moved to transportation planning, traffic demand modeling.
Okay. Yeah,
Now
there
it's
used to
gonna be
something
pre-cert.
called traffic projections, so that one is part of this. That's right.
Yes. Thank you, everybody. Verna?